Advaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanvitanscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna. Good morning to all. Today we are reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 20, entitled Lord Vishnu's Appearance in the Sacrificial Arena, and we are on text 9. Yasva dharmena mam nityam nirashi shrayan vitaha bhajate sanakaistasya manorajan prasidati Yasva dharmena mam nityam nirashi shrayan vitaha bhajate sanakaistasya manorajan prasidati Yasva dharmena mam nityam nirashi shrayan vitaha bhajate sanakaistasya manorajan prasidati. Would anyone like to chant the verse?
Yahasva dharmena mam nityam nirashi shradhayan vitaham bhajate shanakaishtasyam manorajan prasidati.
Anyone else?
Yes, Vadharmi namam nityam nirashi shadayan vita bhajate sanakaishtasya manorajan prasidati.
Synonyms? Yeah. Anyone who. Swadharmena. By his occupational duties. Mam. Me. Nityam. Regularly. Nirashi. Without any motive. Shradaya. With faith and devotion. Anvitaha. Endowed. Bhajate. Worships. Shanakai. Gradually. Tasya. His. Manaha. Mind. Rajan. O King Prithu. Prasidati. Becomes fully satisfied. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai.
Translation: The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, continued. My dear King Prithu, when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within. Purport. This verse is also confirmed by the Vishnu Purana. Occupational duties are known as Varnashram Dharma and apply to the four divisions of material and spiritual life, namely Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra, and Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, and Sannyas. If one works according to the Varnashram Dharma system and does not desire fruitive results, he gets satisfaction gradually. Discharging one's occupational duty as a means of rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. Bhagavad-gita confirms this as the process of karma yoga. In other words, we should act only for the satisfaction and service of the Lord. Otherwise, we will be entangled by the resultant actions. Everyone is situated in his occupational duty, but the purpose of material occupations should not be material gain. Rather, everyone should offer the results of his occupational activities. A Brahmana especially should execute his occupational duties not for material gain, but to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Sudra should work in a similar way. In this material world, everyone is engaged in various professional and occupational duties, but the purpose of such activities should be to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotional service is very simple, and anyone can adopt it. Let one remain what he is. He need only install the deity of the Supreme Lord in his house. The deity may be Radha Krishna or Lakshmi Narayan. There are many other forms of the Lord. In this way, a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, or Sudra can worship the deity with the results of his honest labor. Regardless of one's occupational duty, one should adopt the devotional means of hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping, offering everything to the Lord, and engaging in his service. In this way, one can very easily engage himself in the service of the Lord. When the Lord is pleased with one's service, one's mission in life is fulfilled. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we stated the Mangala Charana in the beginning of the class. And we'll beg the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis that we may be able to speak properly on today's verse and purport, and try to bring out some realizations of this verse and purport. So, thinking about this purport, bringing up Varnashram Dharma, I was thinking how the main problem of people in this world is that we don't really know who we are. Right? This is the main problem. Why? Because if we don't know who we are, when we refer to I, me, and we're getting that wrong, then everything else is going to be wrong. And people around the world are lost because they don't know who they are. They don't understand themselves. They don't understand themselves. They don't understand the world around them. And the first kind of, I would say, first reason why we don't understand ourselves is because of the external energy, Maya. Now, what do we mean by that? The external energy covers the living entity with the material body, material subtle body, and we're engaged by the three modes of material nature. And so this is called Swabhav, right? When we read in Srimad Bhagavatam how the universe is created by Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu glances at the Pradhan, the primordial accumulation of all matter. And by Mahavishnu's glance, that Pradhan is then agitated, which produces the Mahatattva. And then come all of the different categories of creation. Now, in Srimad Bhagavatam's second canto, it talks about what is in the glance of Mahavishnu. The glance of Mahavishnu spurs forth time, kala, swabhav, one's own nature, and karma, different activities. And so we read this verse a couple of verses ago in the purport, but in chapter 5 of Bhagavad-gita, text 14, we hear the word svabhava, right? Na katritvam na karmani lokasya srijati prabhu na karma pala samyogam svabhavas tu pravartite. The embodied spirit, master of the city of his body, does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the modes of material nature. And so Swabhava, Srila Prabhupada translates as the modes of material nature. And in the next verse, it says, nor does the Supreme Lord assume anyone's sinful or pious activities. Embodied beings, however, are bewildered because of the ignorance which covers the real nature. Covers the real knowledge. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which nescience is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in the daytime. So because of this avidya, this ignorance, we are thinking that we're this material body, we're this material mind, and we're bound up by the three modes of material nature. The svabhava is actually doing everything. The spirit soul actually resides in the body, does not do anything, but the svabhava is doing everything. And so we're conditioned by the three modes of material nature. And so the same word svabhava, when we go to the 18th chapter of Bhagavad-gita, where it talks about the qualities of the different varnas, right? If you bring out your Bhagavad-gita and you go to chapter 18 and go to text 42, so text 42, 43, 44, they all end with the same two words, svabhava jam, svabhava jam. So samadamas tapasocham kshantir arjavam evacha jnanam vigyanam astikyam brahma karma svabhavajam. Saryam tejo dhritir daksham yudhe chapya palayanam danam ishvara bhavascham kshatram karma svabhavajam. So these are the qualities of the Brahmins, qualities of the Kshatriyas, qualities of Vaishyas and Sudras. And so we're bound by this svabhava, which when everything is wound up in Mahavishnu, Mahavishnu then, by his glance, the svabhava, Mahavishnu, who is Paramatma also, he brings forth everyone's svabhava. And so we start up, and because of our activities, performing either pious activities, impious activities, whatever activities we perform, we then create another body, another mind, svabhava. So qualities of the Brahmanas: peacefulness, self-control, austerity, cleanliness, tolerance, honesty, knowledge. We see that certain people in this world have this svabhav, they have this nature. Kshatriyas, those who are heroic, full of power and determination, courage in battle, not fleeing, right? Generosity and leadership, these are the qualities of the work for the Kshatriyas. And qualities for the Vaishyas and Sudras: farming, cow protection, and business. Natural qualities for the Vaishyas: labor and service to the other Varnas, the qualities of the Sudras. And I always like to point this out, that so the Brahmana is in the mode of goodness, Kshatriya in the mode of passion, Vaishya mixed passion and ignorance, and then Sudra in ignorance. But I always like to point this out, that when you read these verses, it's interesting to note that the actual activities of a Brahmin and the actual activities of a Kshatriya are not given, but the activities of the Vaishyas and Sudras are given. So their qualities are just to engage in work. You don't really have to have very deep qualities to engage in business or serving the other Varnas, right? It's not very subtle work that they're doing. It's very gross work. But the Kshatriyas and Brahmins, it's interesting because when you think about a Brahmin's work, teaching, giving knowledge, performing fire sacrifices, the actual activities themselves are not given, but the qualities are given. And that's a very interesting point, that you have to have really high qualities to perform the service of Kshatriyas and Brahmanas, which then goes back to Chaturvarnyam, how Krishna says that he actually started this Varnashram system, and it's by Janma karma, it's by birth and qualities. So actually, this is what Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was really rallying against, is that you have Brahmins who didn't have qualities stated in Bhagavad-gita, but because they were born, Janma, in a Brahmin family, they were claiming to be Brahmanas. So these very higher Varnas, you need to have the proper qualities. And that's why there's so much confusion in this world, is because we have these people in high positions, either governmental or religious positions, who don't have the proper qualities. And then those institutions that basically run on those qualities fall apart, become stagnant, corrupted, because of not having the proper qualities. So svabhava, we're in this material world, and we don't really have an educational system to teach us about these qualities, the three modes of material nature, svabhava. We don't have a system set up for mass of people. And so we have a very chaotic society of people who don't understand who they are. But then we can have people in a spiritual organization also not really understand who they are. What do we mean by this? So our bija mantra for our entire philosophy is Jiver Srupa Hoy Krishna Nitya Das, stated by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, revealing that every living entity is eternally in their true constitutional position, rather than their occupational duty, which deals with the mind-body complex, but the actual soul is Nitya Das, eternally the servant of Krishna, Krishnara Nitya Das. But this is a Bij mantra, meaning Bij means seed. And so the seed then grows into a huge tree. And so what we have is that, to use a term that's brought up, is a kind of spiritual bypassing. We just take this verse to go, oh, I'm an eternal servant of Krishna. This is my constitutional position. But the real process of Jivara Sarupa Hoy Krishna Nityadas is revealed by Srila Rupa Goswami, the Dao Shara Tata Sadhu Sangha, that starts with faith. One has faith that, okay, I'm the eternal servant of Krishna. I have faith in that. I have faith in the scriptures. I have faith in the sadhus that are telling me that. So because of having such faith, then one receives initiation from a spiritual master. You Shraddha, Sadhu Sangha, you associate with the sadhus, have faith in them, then you have such faith in a sadhu that you know that they'll help you progress in spiritual life. You take shelter of a spiritual master, and you receive initiation. By receiving initiation, then bhajana kriya, you engage in devotional service. Then there's anartha nivritti. The anarthas come up, and those anarthas are either from pious activities, impious activities, aparads, especially aparads. But by performing devotional service, staying in the association of Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra, then one gets to the platform of Nishtha, firm faith. You actually become very firm in your devotional service. By becoming firm, Nishtha, then you get to a platform of Ruchi, where you're not just performing devotional service because you have to, you're performing devotional service because you want to. You hear the holy names, and there's something that lights up in your heart. You see the deities, there's something that really excites you in doing devotional service, cooking, cleaning, all these things. It's very exciting to do it for Krishna, and there's a taste there. And when that taste matures, then you get to deep attachment, asakti, right? In this, when you finally get to asakti, it transfers over rather than focusing on yourself, because in the beginning stages, you're focusing on your sadhana, your anarthas, your steadiness, your taste. But when that taste goes to deep attachment, asakti, then you're focusing more on Krishna than you are on yourself. And when you're focusing more on Krishna, then Krishna reveals an abhas, a glimpse of who you really are. Not in a theoretical Krishna Nityadas, I'm this all, effulgent jiva who's an eternal servant of Krishna, but you actually get a glimpse of who you are in the spiritual world in one of the 5 main rasas that's given in Nectar of Devotion: Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakya, Vatsalya, Madhurya. So that's at asakti. When you then get to the platform of bhav, Vishuddha Sattva Visheshatma, your Atma, yourself, becomes completely filled up with pure goodness. You're completely free from the modes of material nature. This Haladini Shakti, Samvit Shakti enter the heart, completely reveal who you are in the spiritual world, and then you get to prema. So this is the real process of understanding who we are in our spiritual life, undergoing devotional service. But what happens? is that we do a certain spiritual bypassing. We're still struggling with the anartas. We don't really understand who we are, our actual selves in relation to Krishna and the spiritual world. But we're neglecting this mind-body complex. And by neglecting this mind-body complex and still dealing with the anartas, then we actually don't go to the final goal of prema. We can't even actually get to nishta, right? Because of the three modes of material nature. And we also can't get to the proper goal of prema because various reasons of maybe we don't have gata samskars. We don't have the actual previous impressions to have the ability to fully give ourselves to Krishna. We might not have proper association, right? If Srila Rupa Goswami, Chaitanya Charitamrita talks about how one's association should always be more advanced than ourselves. If we're not having the proper association of those who are more advanced than us, right, then we aren't able to advance. I was talking to Bricia about this, about playing chess, right? If you play chess with those who are, not as advanced, then you're not going to advance yourself. You're just going to be beating the little guys. And then when you play a chess master, then you're, oh man, I don't know anything about chess. And so there's so many reasons why we might not get to the ultimate goal of prema, even though we're going through the motions, we could even become stagnated. But in today's verse and purport, it gives us a way to use the mind-body complex in relation to Krishna so that we can actually properly progress towards prema. Otherwise, again, it can be the spiritual bypass. Oh, I'm pure spirit soul. And then when the anartas come up, because of not really progressing, our whole spiritual life falls apart. And then we're still left with not really understanding who we are. So there's the understanding of the varnashram system, and then there's the understanding of the Bhagavat system of engaging in pure devotional service and going all the way to prema to understand yourself. But this verse is showing how when one situated in his occupational duty engages in my loving service without motive for material gain, he gradually becomes very satisfied within. And Srila Prabhupada points out that in Bhagavad-gita, discharging one's occupational duty as a means of rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it's called karma yoga. But when it's specifically stated that doing it without motive for material gain, you're not going to enjoy the fruits of those occupational duties, but you're going to give it all to Krishna, this becomes nishkama karma yoga, which is a very beginning of devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada says this is also confirmed by the Vishnu Purana. So in Chaitanya Charitamrita, text Madhya Lila, chapter 8, text 58. Varnashramacharya charya vata purushena parapuman Vishnur aradyate panta nanyat tat tosha karanam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Vishnu, is worshipped by the proper execution of prescribed duties in the system of Varna and Ashram. There is no other way to satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One must be situated in the institution of the 4 varnas and ashrams. And in the purport, it's very interesting that Srila Prabhupada says, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his Amrita Pravaha Bhashya, his commentary on Chaitanya Charitamrita, says the purport is that one can realize life's perfection simply by satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And we see how Srila Prabhupada then puts it in today's purport in Srimad Bhagavatam. Discharging one's occupational duties as a means of rendering devotional service unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal of life. In other words, we should act only for the satisfaction and service of the Lord, otherwise we will be entangled by the resultant actions. And one becomes pleased when the Lord is pleased with one's service. And Srila Prabhupada goes into detail about Varnashram life. And Srila Prabhupada saw that many of his devotees, he actually talks about one sannyasi who fell from the platform of sannyas because he had 5 women attached to him. And he was trying to spiritual bypass. He was thinking himself a sannyasi who's liberated, but he was engaging in nefarious activities with 5 different women. And Srila Prabhupada said, this is why we need Varnashram Dharma. Not everyone can imitate Haridas Thakur, which means that I'm just going to sit down, chant Hare Krishna, and be completely immersed in Bhakti Rasa, the mellows of devotional service. Rather, what happens is we sit down and we struggle with chanting the holy names. Devotees in LA once told me, a really good example of not dealing with your own anartas and trying to just push them down is there was one devotee who he had a harmonica. I guess it's like a harmonica holder, right? When we think of like Bob Dylan or somebody who they would play guitar and then play harmonica, and he would put a picture of Radha and Krishna, and he would walk around everywhere with this harmonica holder and this picture of Radha and Krishna. But devotees saw that he eventually left the movement, left devotional service altogether, because he wasn't really dealing with the issues in his own heart and things that he had to address. He was just trying to push everything down and not really understand his mind-body complex. So everyone already is engaged in their svabhav, right? We see that there's professors, there's brahmanas who are teachers, and material imperfectional occupational duties. They might not have the qualities of the Brahmins, but we have teachers, we have governmental persons, we have businessmen and farmers, we have regular business people who are just, serving others. So everyone's already engaged in some type of occupational duty, and that's going to be there because of their svabhav. We just need to connect that with Krishna, which is the Varnashram system. All right, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, understanding what your occupational duty is, but then to also have the system of the various ashrams, brahmacharya, celibacy, to then engage you in proper grihastha ashram, so that the 2 people that come together just aren't using each other for sense gratification, but they're actually maintaining a house that's devoted to higher understanding. Then vanaprast, those who are elderly, they kind of go within and start renounce more. And then sannyas, where one completely renounces the occupational duties. And so nishkama karma yoga, as stated in the Vishnu Purana. This is actually brought up in the Ramananda Roy conversation with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Right? Ramananda Roy is asked to recite verses regarding the sadhya, the ultimate goal of life. And sadhana is that practice which will lead us to the goal of life. And so that's why a sadhu is one who points out the sadhya for the sadhika to perform sadhana. And he recites this verse, and Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejects it, saying that it's external, but it's still important to undergo this varnashram system so that we can understand ourselves and then make progress. And especially this nishkama karma yoga, that we're not going to want the fruits and activities. But then he says, Sarvadharman prityaja mamekam sharanam vraja. Right? Give up occupational duties, give up all this dharma, this svabhav, and engage in Jnana Mishra Bhakti, which is Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma Nashochati Nakangshati. Getting to a platform where you're not hankering or lamenting about the things of this material world. Then you get to Jnana Shunya Bhakti, which is, he recites a beautiful verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Brahma Stuti, the prayers of Lord Brahma, chapter 14, after the Agasura and Brahma Vimohan Leela. Lord Brahma, he offers prayers to Krishna. And this Jnana Shunya Bhakti, where you're not going to mentally speculate or use Gyan to engage in devotional service, but you're going to engage in real Bhakti. This is where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says, this is good, but you can go further. But the verse states that those who, even while remaining situated in their established social positions, varnashram, throw away the process of speculative knowledge and with their body, words, and mind, offer all respects to descriptions of your personality and activities, dedicating their lives to these narrations, which are vibrated by you personally and by your pure devotees, certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. So amazing how in this platform of bhakti, you can stay situated in your established social position, but you're going to stop this speculative knowledge and you're going to dedicate yourself to the narrations of Krishna. Hearing and chanting, and especially hearing by pure devotees, they certainly conquer your lordship, although you are otherwise unconquerable by anyone within the three worlds. What does it mean to actually conquer Krishna? It means yeyatam mam prapadyante tangstitaiva bhajamyam. Krishna is going to reciprocate with your loving devotion. So when you're on this platform, then when you go before the Lord to offer bhoga, right? If you're going to make a preparation of food for the Lord, you're so immersed in, oh, please, Krishna, you have to accept this. Otherwise, my life is useless if you don't accept this. And Krishna, what happens? He becomes hungry, right? Now, this is a very high platform because when we see different devotees, especially on this platform of conquering Krishna, they're worried about Krishna's eating, sleep. They want to serve Krishna in a very intimate way, right? Lord Nrsingadev is never hungry. Why is Lord Nrsingadev never hungry? Because Prahlad Maharaj, he never desires to see the Lord as somebody who's in need of something. He knows that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Nrsingadev, he has everything. He's Madhava. He's served by the goddess of fortune. He doesn't need any food. But the devotees in a very intimate relationship, especially in Vrindavan, they're worried about Krishna's health. They're worried that Krishna's not eating. And so they desire to serve Krishna by offering water and foodstuffs, and even wanting to protect him with with mantras after he kills a demon. So in this way, they actually conquer the Lord with their love and devotion, not conquering the Lord with power or brute force, but conquering the Lord with love and devotion, so that he has to reciprocate with their love. So when a devotee is desiring so much to feed Krishna, then Krishna becomes thirsty and hungry. So this is the real beginning of this bhakti, but one can stay situated in their established social position, and it's not a problem. It's not an issue, because the real issue then is the internals rather than the externals. And so there's this hierarchy in Ramananda Roy's conversation with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, from going to the lowest devotion to the highest. Whereas in Bhagavad-gita, Krishna in chapter 12, what does he do? He starts with the highest, right? He says to, the highest is, fix your mind on me exclusively, right? The smarana atmika bhakti, your atma, you're completely absorbed in just remembering Krishna. This is the highest. But Krishna goes on, well, but if you can't do this, then you should fix your intelligence on me. If you can't do this, just try to fix your mind on me. If you can't do this, then work for me. Perform sadhana bhakti for his pleasure. And then if you can't do that, then give up the results of your work. If you can't offer all your actions to me, then give up all the results of your work. Sarva karma palatyagam. And so there's hierarchies of devotional service, and to understand where we are on this hierarchy is going to be to our great benefit, so that we can actually understand who we are, what platform of bhakti we're on, so that we can deal with the mind-body complex, not in a repressive way, suppressive way, which then will bring up so many problems in the future. And then to get to the higher platforms of devotional service, we'll actually be able to stay there. And Srila Prabhupada ends this purport in such a simple, practical way. Whatever position you're in, right? Just as Brahma stated, whatever social position you're in, stay in that position. Just dedicate yourself to the narrations of Krishna, which again is the real reason to engage in this varnashram system. Dharma svanushtita pungsam vasudeva katasuya notpadayed yadi ratim shrama evahi kevalam. If you're performing your occupational duties and you don't become attracted to the narrations, Vasudev Kata, then Shrama Evahi Kevalam, it's a complete waste of time. And so Srila Prabhupada ends this purport in a beautiful way of, okay, just stay at home, whatever your occupational duty is, bring deities into your house and perform hearing, chanting, remembering, worshiping. And this is seen in the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in two places where we have the Kurma Brahmin, right? The Kurma Brahmin, he wanted to leave his family behind and engage in devotional service with Lord Chaitanya. But Lord Chaitanya said, don't speak like that. Remain at home. Just chant Krishna's holy names. Yare deka tare kaha Krishna upadesh amara agyai guru hana tara e desh. Instruct everyone to follow Krishna's orders. Thus become a spiritual master and try to liberate everyone in this land. But if you follow this, your materialistic life at home will not obstruct your spiritual advancement. Indeed, we will again meet here, or you will never lose my company. And so Kurma Brahmin, he follows Lord Chaitanya for some time, but Lord Chaitanya brings him back. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is saying, it's not going to obstruct your materialistic life, or you could just stay at home, chant Hare Krishna, and teach others about Krishna, and then everything will be revealed. And then we have Subhuti Roy, Subhuti Roy, he used to be a landowner. He was such a landowner that he had one servant who was known as Hussein Khan, Syed Hussein Khan. He had one servant, and he told the servant one day that to engage in building a lake, and he did something wrong, and so he whipped him. He whipped his servant and left this mark on his body. So Syed Hussein Khan, he later becomes the Nawab Hussein Khan. He becomes the king of all Bengal. And his wife and him, they were engaged in activities, amorous activities. She saw this mark on his body and it was getting in the way of her sense gratification. So she said, "Who has made this mark?" And he said, "Oh, Subhuti Roy, who is like a father to me. I want you to kill him. He's made this mark on your body. It's getting in the way of my sense. I want you to kill him." And Hussein Khan was, "I can't kill him. He was like a dear father to me. I can't do that. Okay, take away his caste. Sprinkle some water from a cup that's been that was used to drink. A Muslim used it to drink water from. If I do that, then he'll no longer live." And so he was in such a situation from his wife that he went and sprinkled water that a Muslim drank from a cup from, and by this he lost his caste and was then converted into Islam. That's how corrupt the Varnashram system became, and still is in certain areas, that you could sprinkle water from where a Muslim drank, and that person would then be converted to Islam. They would lose their Hindu caste. So Subhuti Roy, he didn't know what to do. He went to some Brahmins in Varanasi. He went to Varanasi and they said, "Well, you should drink ghee and die. You should drink hot ghee. And because you have ghee in your stomach, when you die, then you'll be born a Brahmin." He didn't really think this was a good idea to drink ghee and die. So he went to others and they said, "Oh, just, perform some pious chitta and you'll be relieved of it." So he didn't know what to do, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he visited Chandrasekhar Acharya and Srila Sanatana Goswami in Varanasi, he met Subhuti Roy. And Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just chant the holy names. Just worship Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada in the purport talks about how so many people are confused in life because of Varnashram Dharma. They don't understand who they are, mind-body complex. Just chant Hare Krishna and everything will be revealed. And so Subhuti Roy, what does he do? He takes Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's advice. He says, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, just by namabhas, just by a glimpse of the holy name, all your sinful reactions will disappear. Just go to Vrindavan, chant the holy names constantly. And so Subhuti Roy went to Vrindavan, Mathura, and he would sell he would sell wood. He would collect dry wood, sell it, get some paisa, get some little bit of money. He would use that to then buy yogurt and rice for the Bengali devotees. Right? The Gaudiya Vaishnavas, they usually would eat large amounts of rice. But when they go to Vrindavan, Vrindavan is the land of rotis, chapatis. So in Vrindavan, the Bengalis, they wouldn't eat so much rice, so they would get indigestion. And Subhuti Roy would feed them rice and yogurt and nurse them back to health. And when Rupa Goswami went to Vrindavan, then Subhuti Roy was the one who showed Rupa Goswami the 12 forests of Vrindavan and stayed in his association for a month. So in these two pastimes, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, as Srila Prabhupada states, whatever your material position, whatever your occupational position is, Varna and Ashram, it's good to know your mind-body complex, but at the same time, attach yourself to the narrations of Krishna, chant the holy names, remember Krishna, teach others about Krishna. Right? Bolo Krishna, Bhaja Krishna, Koto Krishna Shika, and everything will be revealed. So Hare Krishna, thank you for your kind attention. We have highlights from Vijay Krishna Prabhu in the chat, and then we also have a question from Tara. And maybe I'll read the question from, or I'll read the highlights quick, or Vijay Krishna Prabhu, would you like to read the highlights?
It's up to you, Prabhu. What is it that you want me to do?
If you want to read the highlights, and then we'll get to Tara's question, or whatever.
Why don't you answer the question of Mother Tara, please?
Okay. She says, Hare Krishna, isn't the desire to conquer the Lord, for lack of a better word, just yucky? It feels less than loving, less than sincere. It's almost a painful notion. When you love someone, where does the desire to conquer them come into play? And yes, conquering the Lord doesn't mean to force your love on the Lord, but you want to serve the Lord in such a loving way that we gave the example of how when somebody is so wanting to serve the Lord with love, so we gave the example of making an offering to the Lord. Just think, even if you want to offer water to the Lord, because you hear patram pushpam palam toyam, right? Krishna says if you offer a leaf, water, fruit, flower with love, then he accepts it. So in our devotional service, when we go before the Lord and want to offer even a leaf or water, then we're like, oh, Krishna, you'll accept this if I have love. And we're praying and we're wanting so much for the Lord to accept this, that the Lord actually reciprocates with our love, that he becomes thirsty, he becomes hungry. And so then the Lord actually accepts it. So this is what it actually means to conquer the Lord, because the Lord's name is Ajita, one who's not conquered, right? Actually, no one can conquer Krishna, but because of such love. And this is why we see with the gopis, right? They give up everything, right? Uddhava prays, asamaho, charanarenu jashamaham kim vrindavane kimapigoma latau shadinam svadharma. They give up dharma, they give up everything. Arya patam chahitva, they give up everything just to be close to Bejur Makunda Padavim Samarjam Vermegriam, that the Vedas, they're trying to understand and run after the lotus feet of Krishna, but Krishna is running after the gopis. And Uddhava, he prays that I can't understand the love of the gopis, right? Their love is so high that Krishna actually cannot properly reciprocate with them. So what to speak of Krishna reciprocating with us, that's easy. our love is very small. So Krishna is it's very easy to reciprocate with our love. But Krishna says, I cannot reciprocate with the gopis. I cannot repay them. And so Uddhava, he's so bewildered that he's praying, Goma latau shadinam, let me become a bush or a creeper. Let me become a blade of grass in Vrindavan so that the gopis' feet will walk on top of me and then somehow be able to be covered by the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees so that I can actually understand what real love and devotion is. So the gopis actually have Krishna completely conquered. And Mother Yashoda has Krishna conquered, right? She binds him up. She actually binds him up. So yeah, it's not in a conquering way in terms of power and force, but it's through love and devotion that Krishna actually wants to reciprocate with us. Is that okay? Does that, okay. Thank you for a nice question. Very deep. And then I guess if anybody else has any other questions or comments, or if we should go to the highlights, or yeah, if anybody has any other questions or comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So I guess, I was just seeing in my own life path and spirituality, how one can oscillate into different realms of, being so on top of your japa that it's like getting done early and you're getting service done, and then that falls away, So it's like, I think finding the consistency, I suppose that's why Prabhupada has structured everything in these, to come to Mangalartik, so that structure will also keep you on the path. Something else is finding fault with the devotees. I see is how it really does cause like roadblocks or trip ups in your own spiritual life, and of all the things, even with one's own mind, those offenses can really come in. And so I'm not sure if it's just a question or a reflection, but just looking at sometimes, I remember early on being in the ashram and thinking, oh, this is it for me. I'm never going to do anything else. I don't want to hear another Karmi song. I'm just going to completely surrender everything, and then, as life goes on, other paths and other things come in, and how you see when you take the shelter of these great souls there in service and in question, how those things in your consistency will keep pulling you back on the path. And anyways, I just really like what you were talking about, because it gave me a lot of self-reflection on my own life path. And thank you.
Hare Krishna. Yeah, thank you for your reflection. I was thinking while you were speaking on how different spiritual advisors, right, those who dive deep into their own spiritual process, they kind of reveal how in the beginning devotional service can be very new, right? We're hearing like new mantras, and we're hearing new pastimes, and everything's so new. The food is new, and everything's so new, and it's so relishable. And then there's a point in our spiritual life where like we're thinking, oh, this is amazing, I'm going to do this forever. And then what happens is certain acharyas talk about how in the beginning aparads, like you brought up aparad, Vaishnav aparad, there's so many different aparads. Seva aparad, we can unknowingly create offenses while performing service. We might dham aparad, living in a holy place, we can actually make offenses to the dham and so on. And because of our enthusiasm and because of being new to bhakti, we don't know so much. So the aparads aren't really taking such a big effect. But then what happens is we start getting more knowledge, and we start getting a little bit more progression, and these aparads actually, that's when the anarta nivritti comes. And so when we hear about St. John of the Cross's Night of the Soul, Madhurya Kandabini, anarta nivritti, all these things actually, it's a big test, right? Okay, I've given you some taste in the beginning of devotional service, everything's new, but now it's like, okay, are you actually going to be serious? And that's when Krishna really tests us. And then are we able to make it through? If you make it through, then you get to Nishta, which is kind of more smooth sailing. You can actually, there's a beauty in not struggling so much. Oh, should I accept Krishna consciousness? Should I not accept Krishna? Is it the right philosophy? What about this? What about that? And then when you get to that point of just like, oh, Krishna consciousness. I'm just going to accept it. I'm just going to accept chanting the holy names and just go deeper. Otherwise, we're not really going to make so much progress in spiritual life. But that's why Anartha Nivritti is so important, because it really makes us dive deeper into spiritual life. That's where we start crying and trying to surrender, going through hardships. And it's a very painful experience, but it's still quite necessary.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Mataji, humble
Hare
obeisance.
Krishna. Thank you for nice class. You were talking about the importance and implementation, perhaps, of Varnashram and looking at it realistically in the world, in both spiritual and secular institutions, where there is a semblance of something like Varnashram, that seems quite rigid. Like in some parts of the world, it's very filthy, very, very unclean, because the so-called upper classes, with their so-called subtle work and contribution, they won't clean. There's no flexibility. The stratification is very rigid. So it seems like the society is kind of receding instead of being progressive. So because of that lack of flexibility and this discrimination that we are in the higher classes, the upper classes, you're in the lower, and it does happen even within spiritual institutions. So one might wonder, what is really the importance of this Swabhava and this, because even in the so-called Daivi Varnashram, these things happen. It's like, I'm a Brahmin, I'm not going to clean the toilet and whatever, I work on the altar. So why want to bring in something like this rigid stratification again? How is that going to help? It doesn't seem very progressive after all. So any comments on that?
Yeah. Today's purport, and thinking about how people are really struggling with understanding who they are. We're already engaged in our svabhav, our nature. We're already engaged with the three modes of material nature anyway, but Srila Prabhupada says that it makes the path easier. And when we're in a Western society, our society is so all over the place that people are really struggling with understanding who they are and what the goal of life is. I mean, to think about how society now, we have those who are Brahmins, professors and teachers, who are struggling to actually make ends meet, but we'll have a basketball player, a football player, sign a multi-million-dollar deal to play sports. We'll have those who are soldiers and kshatriyas not actually be trained in proper qualities of kshatriyism, and they're seen as, very kind of go wait in that foxhole and we'll tell you to blow up a village when you're needed. Otherwise, you just kind of sit in a foxhole and wait for us to tell you what to do. So to understand who we are and what society actually should be, and for the people to upgrade themselves, there has to be some type of knowledge of Varnashram Dharma. Otherwise, as you said, things degrade. Even in spiritual institutions, things degrade. And so not to bring back a rigid system, because Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not advocate that. And Srila Prabhupada says so many things about Varnashram Dharma, that it would be impossible to bring back a Varnashram system that we had in the Vedic times. But we should at least understand, well, what is your proclivities in this life? Are you a businessman? Are you a worker, construction worker? Are you a person who's going to go on Wall Street and, work with stocks and computer sciences and all this stuff? Whatever your proclivity is, that's fine. Just understand that that's your nature and be comfortable with that nature. Now add Krishna consciousness to it. As Srila Prabhupada said, establish a deity at your home and attach yourself to the narrations of Krishna, and then your life will actually be perfect and you'll understand who you are, rather than even in spiritual institutions, we're like, am I a Brahmin? Am I a Kshatriya? And then we get people who they try to spiritual bypass all of that and just think, okay, I'm just a spirit soul and I'm going to go straight to hearing and chanting about Krishna. And then years later, they're engaged in material activities in a very gross way because they've tried to repress and suppress their material nature. And so just bringing up that point, not to bring back a rigid varnashram system, Srila Prabhupada said that's impossible. But to have at least some understanding, and then, how to, it's not going to be easy, but if we get Krishna conscious leaders somehow in a secular society, even a secular society would benefit from varnashram system so that there's some upgrade rather than degrade. Would you like to say anything on that point? Hare Krishna. Not sure if she's still connected or not.
Thank you for your nice answer. Yes, I'm seeing from your answer that the real Varnashram is whatever propensities we have and whatever situation we're in that's helping us to maintain body and soul together. It's important that we add Krishna to the equation, and Tesham Satata Yuktanam, Krishna will help us from within. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. It's getting a little late. If Vijay Krishna Prabhu, if you wanted to read the highlight.
No, it's already too late, Prabhu. No need for dealing with my highlights. I just thank you for, as usual, a very, very engaging class, Prabhu. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Sure. Right. Thank you all for your kind attention. Please forgive any offenses. If I was able to say anything properly, it's by all of your blessings and blessings of Shri Guru and Gauranga. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.